Hello, 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 and welcome to the Dadler Soul Sessions. It's the March edition of the sessions. My name is Jim Colson, and I'm with you for an hour or so. We've got loads of great stuff coming up, as you would expect from Dadler Soul. Let's have a look at the menu in true This Morning style, okay? Okay, just realised what's happened there is that I seem to be watching myself on the internet. There we go. Anyway, let's do the menu in This Morning style. Coming up very soon, Dan Lasol has got an update on the latest Dad Lasol developments, including something very exciting. Dan Flanagan will be here to talk about that. Then we've got Alex's conflict management clinic about 10 to 9, quarter to 9. He'll be answering your conflict management questions. And 9 o'clock, main guest of the evening, children's author Sam Wilson, on having a premature baby, the support available, and his story as well, which is extraordinary. If you were at the Brighton Dads Only meetup last week, you'll have heard his story. If not, then you have got something quite spectacular and heartwarming, but also tear-jerking to expect in the next hour on this Dadler Soul Sessions. Hopefully it'll be a bit more slick than it was when my phone started playing myself delayed by about 10 seconds and confusing my very small, very tiny mind. So first of all, let's start off by going to a chat I recorded earlier today before I'd had a shave with our boss, our guru, Dan Flanagan. Soul Sessions, it is a Dan Flanagan from Worthing. Hello, Dan. You've won the competition to come onto the Dadler Soul Sessions and just wave at your friends.
This is awkward because I didn't even enter a competition.
Okay.
I did enter one in Great Hits Radio, but they promised to make me a winner, where you spend £2 on a text message, and then in 5 rings, if you answer the phone, they'll give you 150 grand. But it still hasn't happened. But I did win £100 on the premium bonds on Sunday. So
no way, actual in real life.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I don't know, but you know, if you need a loan, don't ask me.
Can I have £101, please?
You can, but just not from me.
Yes. Okay, fine. Of course, it's Dan Flanagan. He's like the king of Dadler Soul. That's what he makes us call him.
Grandpa Simpson.
Yes, we have established that before. How's it going for you, Dan? How are you doing? Are you all right? Is everything okay?
I am very well. It feels like spring is in the air. So the sun is out.
Spring is in the air.
There's a lot of bugs going around, so I know a lot of the boys and girls at home will probably, like myself, have been struggling with coughing and sneezing and diseasing. But I'm out the other side, and yeah, I'm feeling all right, Jim. I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling good.
Nice.
And you didn't realise it was karaoke.
I'm up for that. If we want to do that, as long as we don't have to pay any rights, I'm slightly concerned that our singing is going to be so accurately close to the songs that we're singing that YouTube or whatever is going to flag us to go, you're just stealing content.
They would probably think we are some sort of deep fake because I know I look like a young Brad Pitt already.
Of course, yeah.
Dad Pitt.
The idea of a dad pit is slightly sinister, if anything, really.
A big pit where you put all the dad bodies in.
Oh, okay. Right.
Even more sinister, yeah?
Yeah, it already turned a corner. Now it's gone back on itself, and there's no way out of this. I think we're stuck. We're done.
Family-friendly entertainment, as always.
Exactly. This is why we do this at night. This is why we don't do this stream for the kids. Absolutely destroy them forever. They'll never think straight again if they see some dads talking about dead dad bodies in a pit.
Dead dads.
Yeah. Blimey. Right. Anyway, what's going on with Dadler Soul?
We is famous. We are going to be on the telly box and the wireless early next week. So, should we let the cat out of the bag?
Let's do that. Should we have a little picture of what happened? Here we go.
Yeah. So that is Gareth, left to right, the wonderful host of Beer No Evil, which is a brilliant little craft beer cave that we frequent just down the road. There's young Tyler, the king of the sea swims. On the right, there's Stu, who's one of our very keen volunteers that works at Brighton and the Worthings. And the fella in the stripy jumper is a young boy from the Big Smoke that came down to see us, called Matt Edmondson, who is a stand-up comedian, and he's on the Matt and Molly show on Radio 1. And he came to play with us for the day.
And so why would he want to talk to you? And by the way, Dan, I didn't realise you were quite so short, but you...
Why would he want to talk to you? Do you know how rude and aggressive that actually was? You? Really? You?
I mean, it sounds rude, but come on, right? It's what everyone was thinking.
It was. So this is all part of Comic Relief, because it's about that time of year where time to get your red nose out. And what Comic Relief do, they have a range of different production teams that scour the country for interesting stories on the projects that they've supported over the year. And they got in touch with us and sort of like the cut of our jib and thought they'd come down. So it was a team from Morning Live TV, which is a sort of light-hearted magazine show on Monday morning on Radio 1. I don't tend to watch telly on a Monday morning, so I wasn't too aware of it, and hadn't really listened to it, Radio 1 since the 90s. But I thought, do you want to come and hang out with Adler Soul? And they said yes. So they interviewed myself, Jaden, Stu, Tyler, and it was really interesting because Matt has got a couple of young kids himself, and all joking aside, he'd lost his own dad to suicide. So he really got what we were trying to do and what we do and the reasons behind it. And it meant for, it's been made into like a 7 or 8 minute film and then a radio documentary for Radio 1. And I think it's going to be very, very powerful, if I'm honest. And I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Because, you know, you see those packages that they make, and now we as an organisation are part of one, and that's really, you know, it's nice that they're obviously recognising a success story from their funding, which is very nice for us, and hopefully will spread the word of Dadler Soul and people will understand more about what we do.
It is, you know, normally, you know, with the charity appeals, it tends to be poorly donkeys or smiley kids with one leg, really plug on the heartstrings. But this just happens to be some really, really handsome middle-aged men. So I think they're going for, you know, a different view to be able to get people to open up their wallets and purses by putting, you know, some hunky men on camera.
Well,
that's my view, anyway.
Did they interview the hunky men after they'd finished with you? Then
again, this is the second time you've just been really rude. Why are they talking to you? Hunky men, yeah, just not you. Yeah. That's just, this is Comic Relief. It's about kindness.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. No, Children in Need's about kindness. Comic Relief is about making fun of people and then going, oh, by the way, let's have a little cash. So
I remember the very first Comic Relief event or campaign, and I was at secondary school, and me and my best friend at the time, Mark, we came into school with makeup on and our clothes on backwards. And we got pulled to the headmaster's office and really told off. And we said,
really?
For doing it for charity, which wasn't strictly true. We were doing it because we were annoying little pains in the bum. Let's be honest. But yeah, they did not support Comic Relief. But who would have known 30 years later, they actually also, Comic Relief have probably been supporting us for the last 3 or 4 years through some particularly rocky times when their COVID hit as well, you know, and they're still doing it. So it's really nice to be recognised as one of their sort of national success stories.
No, that's great and really good. And the problem is at the moment we're not entirely sure when it's going out, right? So you're just going to have to watch Morning Live every day next week. Grab a brew, have a sit down in front of the telly, and
have Radio 1 on non-stop.
Yeah, exactly. So if you could do both of those things, you can make sure that you find out about when Dada Soul's going to be on. So we think maybe Monday or Tuesday on Morning Live, and then Radio 1, we're not sure just yet. But as soon as we find out any information, we will, of course, stick it on social media and basically keep barraging you until you listen. Whether
I
it's
was going to say there is no shadow of a doubt that you might miss this because
Yeah.
we are going to be pumping it down your throats and your ears for quite a while. This is great publicity for us. Really big professional production team behind it. So yeah, going to do it. We are media sluts at the end of the day.
That's it, and happy to be so as well.
Yeah.
You know, no
Yeah,
qualms.
isn't it weird though? The story actually. We were talking about Morning Live TV, and we found out there's a family connection there as well.
Yeah, so my brother works on it. He works in the social media team, so it's kind of separate from the team that came down to the South Coast to film you lot. But yeah, it's just really strange. Like I'd never really made the connection, and I've said this on you can. Well, this is a little preview for this week's Dad Soul Extra Time podcast. But I was talking to a bloke called Jake from Morning Live who was dealing with the filming and stuff. And I said, oh, you work with my brother, don't you? And I'd been speaking to my brother, and I said to him, oh, I've been working with a bloke called Jake from Morning Live. And my brother was like, oh, yeah, Jake, he's lovely. He's really nice. He's brilliant. He's really good. Yeah. When I said it to Jake, oh, you work with my brother Dave, don't you? Jake went, yep, know him, yep. So I don't know if there's some kind of imbalance in that working relationship, or whether
they're not in the office quiz team together. But I'm judging for that.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not in five-a-side on a Monday.
If they're in the five-a-side team, there's some like elbows in the ribs and stuff potentially. But yeah,
so I don't know if the sort of fella that would nitpick the Jake sandwich out of the the staff canteen, or use a big "do not eat my cake" and put a label on there. And he's the sort of fella going, "Oh, I'm going to have a little nibble of that cake just because you've got a label on it."
I'm just trying to weigh up whether my brother would sue me for libel,
or give you a wedgie.
Or give me a wedgie. Yeah, he's the younger brother. He can't give me a wedgie.
Yeah. Are you bigger and stronger and more robust than he is? That is not the word I was going to use. No.
I think we're probably a similar robustness level. He might actually be a very small amount taller than me. Okay. But I am.
And he was always your mum's favourite.
Oh yeah, probably. To be honest.
So he's got that psychological advantage.
But here's a bit of Colson family gossip, right? Every year we get my mum and dad like a calendar for the year with the grandkids, and we take it in turns to do it. And it was my turn to do it this year. And my mum, in front of the whole family, went, oh, I think this is the best one ever. Yes!
Ooh.
Yes! So I got bragging rights for 12 months. And I know come November, when he's sorting it out for next Christmas, he's going to be pulling out the stops. He's going to be getting like a Harrods quilted luxury velvet one or something like that.
Bejeweled.
Yes, exactly. He's going to be trying to go over the top and beat it. Because I know for a fact, and it would be the same with any set of brothers in the world, I'm sure. As much as he can go, oh, it's lovely that she's got something that she likes, it will be eating away at him and will continue to do so. Every time he goes to visit and he sees that calendar on the wall, he'll know that that's my mum's favourite.
And it had February the 29th in it as well. So, again, you've got something that he didn't have.
I know. Got an extra day. So that is pretty exciting. Right, anything else going on with Dard Le Soul?
Dard Le Soul. We're in Brighton on Saturday for our play date. We got even more play dates and more events coming up. So I'll fill you in on the next show about some really interesting speakers. One of which I think you're probably going to have a chat with a bit later on. Ben, who had the pleasure of interviewing at our evening event on Thursday, talking about his story on not surviving, but having premature babies and what it's like. And that was incredibly powerful. I'm not saying that just because he's coming up, but there was almost not a dry eye in the house when he was telling just the raw brutality of what it's like to essentially have to work and then come back to the hospital every day to think that your child might not be surviving. It's brutal, but a really important subject for us to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was really, really happy with the way that turned out. And so, yeah, big shout to our partners, the Early Birth Association, for all that incredible work they're doing for those, there's hundreds of families going through this situation day in, day out.
Definitely, and we'll talk to Sam about that and about the support that he got a little bit later on, after we've had the conflict management clinic with Alex, which is going to come up next.
Alex, a teenager.
Yeah, Alex, now a teenager. If you're watching a couple of months ago, we found out it was a February the 29th baby, and it was his 13th birthday was last week, which is crazy when you think about it.
Can you find out if he's turned in, that scene in Kevin and Perry, where it suddenly turns out he started to get spots and be really sulky and hit puberty? I think that's what might have happened to him. So I just want to check.
This might be the case. I might put a question to him and he might just go, "Shut up," and then just go out the call.
Fix this person.
Yeah, then I've got 15 minutes to fill and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So let's hope he doesn't do that.
I reckon he will.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, because he's not in any way professional.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's go and find out. Let's fast forward to real time tonight when this is going out and see what Alex has to say. Dan, thank you very much.
Pleasure as always, Jimbo.
That was what happened when I spoke to Dan Flanagan earlier on. Since then, we've found out that the video is likely to go out Tuesday morning on Morning Live. So if you are near a TV or the iPlayer or whatever, we will try and get the clip and share it on our social media as well. But I've seen a rough cut of it. They sent it through literally as we finished that call. We both got an email from Comic Relief going, "Oh, this is the rough cut of the video that we did." And it's just a really powerful 7 minutes about Dad LaSoul and some of our dads and their stories and how Dad LaSoul has helped them. It's well worth watching. And Matt Edmondson's story as well is really touching, and the sort of connections that he feels between what we're doing and what could have possibly helped his dad is really powerful. So yeah, that's Tuesday morning. It's looking like we'll keep you up to date when we know the latest information on our social media. Right, Alex is on the way very soon. First of all, this is what happens when you come to a Dad's Only meetup.
Yeah. Just come to your first Dad LaSoul session.
Yeah.
Tell me what you thought you were expecting and what actually happened.
Well, obviously, I'm aware of Dad LaSoul and have been for a while. So and I know you, so I knew it was going to be a fun event, and that's what it was. And there was a huge amount of warmth in the room. One thing that struck me was there was no awkwardness at the beginning. Like, I didn't really know anyone here, but right from the beginning, there was really nice chats. Everyone got on really easy. The conversation flowed. So there was warmth, but it wasn't awkward or stiff. It was a laugh. I had a laugh, and that's all you want really out of any experience.
So, would you recommend it?
Definitely. Come down. I mean, it's great. Blokes need more things to do that don't involve like going to the pub and getting pissed. This is a great environment with smart, funny blokes who are a laugh, who are interesting, who are a real mix in terms of background, and it's just like it's important to keep socialising, and it's important to find new ways of doing it. And I would do it here with Dad LaSoul because it's a great bunch of lads.
So we've got our next Dad's Only meetup is next Thursday, the 14th in Hove, and DJ Cy Cannon is going to be there doing a DJ workshop for the dads, but there's also all the usual stuff, like a chance to just chat with other dads. There's free drinks, VR headsets, board games and stuff like that. So if you're in the Hove area, next Thursday, come along, 14th of March, get your tickets right now. Book yourself in. It's dadlasoul.com/shop. On the way, Sam Wilson very soon talking about his experience as the dad of a premature child. But first of all, let's get Alex on for our conflict management conflict. And how does it feel to be a teenager now, Alex?
Absolutely fantastic. Although if I started getting spots at this age, I'd actually be quite worried because it usually means something serious.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, that would be concerning. And there's no like. No attitude problems. You're not going to storm off or anything.
No. I'm not going to storm off. I'm absolutely fine. I'm probably actually too tired to storm off because I'm still actually working.
Oh,
Started
no.
at 8 this morning. I'll finish about 10 this evening. So
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to do
no
this. Then
problem. No
people
problem.
people have sent in some conflict management questions, so I'll put them to you. First one: I find myself in the middle of arguments between my children and my grandparents over differing views and lifestyle choices. My parents are pretty old-fashioned, and I don't get that, and they don't get that life is so much different today. You know, you don't have jobs for life anymore and all that. But they're not bad people, and I don't want to shut down their opinions. What can this dad do?
First of all, step into your children's shoes and they look at you and they will go, my childhood's nothing like your childhood. It's a generational thing. It happens the whole time. And particularly, and I will probably be very uncontroversial in saying this, but the internet has completely changed childhood. And that's only been around for 25 odd years, 25, 30 years. So the changes have been much more marked in recent times. The problem with grandparents is actually very similar to anybody who's giving you unsolicited parenting advice. And that's basically what it is. Unsolicited parenting advice. You take it as a criticism. That's a natural thing to do. It's a criticism because they're saying a different way to the way you're doing it. Their way may be right. Yours may be right. They both may be wrong. It doesn't really matter. It's about the fact that you try not to be offended, because certainly grandparents won't be wanting to offend you. They are simply trying to help and share their experience. After all, they brought you up, and you're now the parent. So they're just trying to give you some of their advice and wisdom. Accept it and say, I really appreciate your support, and I'll definitely ask for advice, whenever I feel I need it. But for this particular situation, I'm going to do it my way. Yeah. So be positive about it. And, if they do constantly actually actively criticize you by saying that's wrong, you shouldn't do that, then say, well, okay, you need to talk about it. Don't just ignore it because it'll just simmer under the surface. Actually confront them, not in an aggressive way, but in a gentle way, and say, I want to really understand why you think that, as opposed to the way I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, things do change between generations. I was earlier on today explaining to my daughter how if you didn't take your PE kit one day by mistake, you had to do PE in your pants. And she was absolutely aghast that that happened, but it did. It very much did.
Oh, it did, absolutely. And these days, the teacher will be hauled up in front of a safeguarding committee
Yes.
instantly.
And you know what? Fair play, I say.
It's the change. It's the change in society's attitudes.
Yes. Yeah. No one needs to see my grubby vest, like you did when I was 5. Anyway, next question. I'm a manager and I have a team member who doesn't seem to accept feedback or direction. It's caused frustration for me, but also it's affecting the team who need him to be more flexible.
Okay, this is actually a massive question, which I'm really only going to be able to scrape the surface on. I could talk about this for probably half an hour quite easily. I'm not going to, Jim. Don't worry.
Okay.
But what you can do, I mean, feedback is vital in this day and age. And every company has variations of feedback: 360-degree feedback, total feedback, complete feedback. There's loads of different names out there, but it all basically means that you get fed back to. But also, what's important is that you can do the feeding back as well. So, as I said, I can only sort of skim the surface on this one because it is so big. But I would suggest that you try to stop giving feedback on performance, whatever it might be, yeah, and actually give feedback on the feedback, yeah, which I know sounds a bit weird, but what I mean by that is actually say, I give you feedback and you get, one word answers, you shrug your shoulders, you raise your eyes to heaven or whatever, what are you thinking? What can I do to engage you with this feedback? Yeah, because we need to all work together. So actually move away from giving feedback about performance, which is obviously what you're doing, and move towards feedback on the feedback. Yeah. And say to the person, what do you think about the way I do it? What do you think about the way I lead? What do you think about the other team members and so on? Get feedback from that person. And it's about starting to build that dialogue. Yeah. See how you can encourage them. Yeah. And ultimately try to, make it a little bit personal, make it a bit more, relevant. Perhaps share a personal story from your history of getting feedback and not liking it and how you dealt with it. But also, try to get them to make a commitment, secure a commitment out of them.
So it's like going down the route of just giving them the feedback and keeping doing that is almost like you're going down a cul-de-sac there. You need to kind of reverse out and then try a different road and see if that's anything
Try and
else.
find out what it is. I mean, ultimately, I'm actually very blunt. I've led and managed teams over the years. And I remember saying to one employee once, you really hate your job, don't you? And he just looked at me and went, yes. And I went, so why are you still here then? And he looked at me and he went, are you firing me? I said, no, I'm not firing you. I said, because you're actually good at what you do. You're good at what you do. You just clearly hate it. But why do you hate it? What can I do? And it literally didn't break the ice. It blew it to smithereens. Yeah. And end result was he actually became a really, really good employee and really motivated and did extremely well. And ultimately ended up in my job after I left. But I won't take the credit for that because it was all him. But what it was about the fact that I actually was blunt and to the point.
Oh God, I've had jobs where I've not enjoyed it. Most jobs, and if anyone had actually noticed, or at least mentioned that they'd noticed that I wasn't enjoying it, I would have been absolutely mortified because I like to think that I make a great job of seeming interested until the boss turns his back and then going, oh my God. But is it that obvious, Alex, as a boss?
It can be. It can be obvious that somebody really doesn't like what they do, or they have, as I think was in his case, actually quite an inferiority complex about the fact that they weren't good enough. You could even go as far as accusing him of imposter syndrome, that he didn't feel he was up to the job. And actually he was, but he didn't really realize that. And that, because he didn't think he was good at it, that made him hate it. But when I actually told him, actually, you are good at what you do, have some confidence in yourself, then he started to believe in himself, which then made him work not any better particularly, but just much more in tune with the rest of the team.
Okay. You see, that's the opposite. I've got the opposite of imposter syndrome. I think I'm too good for anything. And I'm not even really joking either. Not this, though, obviously. I'm very level-headed.
I think that's called grandiose syndrome.
Is it? Okay, good. Yeah, I think I have struggled with that in the past. Anyway, moving on. I'm finding it tough to deal with the peer pressure my children face, especially when it leads to conflicts over screen time and social media use. How do I keep them happy, safe, and give them a little bit of freedom? And this will be clipped out if you give us a good answer to this, because I think this is something that so many parents struggle with, Alex.
It is an absolute minefield and it's a nightmare. And I remember on one of our previous sessions saying that, Jim, when you and I were at school, we would, say goodbye to our friends at the school gate. And unless you had a play date or something, that was it. You didn't see them or talk to them or interact with them until the following day at 8:45 when you turned back in for registration. These days, they've got access to their peer group 24/7. And some parents, for whatever reason, will allow their children 24/7 access to the internet. When mine were younger, I certainly didn't. Yeah, but we were slightly cutting our teeth because the internet only kicked off big time, really, as my children were being born. So they sort of grew up with it, but there was nothing really for us to hang on as to what to do and how to manage it. Tech-free zones, tech-free times, and for any dads out there that have got babies that haven't yet developed social media habits or internet habits, introduce it from the word go, because then it becomes normal. No social media or no technology at the dinner table, no technology in bed, no technology for the last hour before bed. Yeah. Because we've all been aware of blue light issues and how that affects sleep. And I have this conversation with adults. I'm telling adults, you know, they sit there in my surgery and go, why can't I sleep? I said, when do you turn your phone off? When do you turn your laptop off? Oh, just before I go to bed. There you go. You know, and it's with the peer pressure, you know, oh, well, play on whatever game it might be, War Thunder, Fortnite. I don't know. I've never enjoyed computer games, to be honest, but my kids do. And they will get that peer pressure and that will be there. But actually, you need to start encouraging them and getting them to understand that there isn't a requirement to do that. Yeah. They come home, they have structure. You make them do their homework, depending on what age they're, primary, secondary, etc. You make them do homework. You make them read. And that's a good example because today's World Book Day, if I remember correctly. Mercifully, my children are old enough now, they don't have to dress up. That panic when you have to remember to get a costume. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, that's been my week, Alex. That's been my week.
But where it's literally, it's about trying to have some what's often called unplugged, unstructured playtime. Give them the ability. You know, we're lucky we have the Range shop. Other shops are available down the road, and they've got great arts and crafts. And I know it sounds really quaint and a bit twee, but actually doing things like that is really, really good. You know, my son, who's desperate to join the RAF and has done for many years, something that we've done from an early age is good old-fashioned Airfix models or cheaper alternatives. And it's about specifically trying to give them some structured playtime, but also unstructured playtime that doesn't involve a screen. And you will get fight back. But if you can get through this for 21 days, you will break the habit. Humans break habits and it takes 21 days. That's widely accepted. Smoking, excess alcohol, drug use, whatever it might be, addicted to social media, 21 days, if you can stick it out, you will be in a much better place. And kids are the same. So 21 days, 3 weeks of hell. Don't do it when you've got a major business presentation coming up, when you've got a big trip coming up, when you've got other stress coming up because you've got to renegotiate your mortgage or something. Do it when you've got the time. Yeah.
Okay. It's wise words, and we can all take them on board, and we can just try our hardest, Alex. We can try our hardest.
It is. It's very, very difficult. And I really don't envy parents that have got young kids now. I'm talking sort of early primary school age or even preschool age. But if you're lucky enough to have a child that's so small, they haven't hit the screens yet, think of a plan, write the plan down and stick to that plan, because then it becomes the norm in your household.
Okay. And last question, how do you get a time machine and go back?
You find a DeLorean.
Excellent. Wise advice.
Or a police phone box, one of the two.
I knew the science guy there. I knew he'd have the answer. I knew it. Alex, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Jim.
We've got Sam Wilson coming up very soon. First of all, this is what it's like to go to a dads only meetup with Dad Lassalle.
Experience, was it a bit daunting? Was it good to just meet up with other dads? What did you think?
I wasn't expecting anything particularly. I just thought it'd be, because I knew him, it would be interesting. And actually, it's been really, really good. Been able to talk to a lot of people, been able to talk about stuff you wouldn't necessarily normally be able to talk about in a pub, and that sort of thing, which isn't. So you don't normally have a conversation with, how many children have you got, and what's your relationship status, and that sort of stuff. So,
yeah.
That's not something you normally get a chance to sort of say in a pub. Just slap each other around the back and.
Yeah. Guilty as charged. Yeah, no, definitely. Good. And most importantly, you're going to come back.
Yes, that's beer.
Great.
As sponsored by
Unbarred.
Unbarred.
There we go.
They do a very nice beer.
Good. Thanks, Sean. Cheers.
That's what it's like to go to a dad's only meetup. We do 3 of them a month, one in Brighton, one in Hove, and one in Worthing as well. Check out dadlersoul.com/shop for more information. /shop. Anyway, right, time to meet our main guest of the evening. His name is Sam Wilson. Sam, how are you doing?
I am doing very well. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, good to meet you.
Now, the thing is, I quite often have people on here and they've got like Zoom backgrounds and stuff in fact, I've had a couple who've had the same background of like a fancy swimming pool and stuff.
I know the one.
Your ski chalet background there is not a fancy Zoom background, is it?
Yeah, I feel a bit guilty saying, I've managed to negotiate a week away with the boys snowboarding in the Three Valleys. So I'm currently in the Three Valleys and enjoying life to the max, having a break from, let's say, the reality. So yeah, that's a genuine chalet background you can see behind me for sure.
Perfect. Brilliant. Oh, it's good to have you on location. It's exciting. This is going international for Dad La Soul. That's quite
this is it, live on set. Yeah, this is big.
Brilliant. Now, Sam, it's kind of fitting that you're on today because, as Alex said, World Book Day today. You are an author of children's books now, yes?
That is correct. Yeah, I am a proud author of our first children's book. Second one in the pipeline as we speak, but the first one is officially published and out and available to buy at the usual book outlets. So Waterstones, Amazon, all of that, and it's called Lend a Hand. And I can launch into a bit of background on it if you like, Jim, or unless you've got some question. Cool.
I've got questions, but you know what? It's always better when you say it in your words, and I can just sit here and listen.
Okay, well, I'll try and launch in the best way I can. The backstory of it's quite fun because it was written over Zoom with a friend of mine who's actually here snowboarding right now, who's an illustrator, and we did that in 2020 when lockdown happened, and we were thinking that there's a couple of charities in the Brighton area who've been super helpful to us as a family and my daughter in particular who has additional needs, and like many charities during that lockdown period there was no funding coming in for them. So we had a little think and we thought, well, look, I'm okay with the words, he's very good with the drawings, why don't we kind of combine those two talents and see if we can write a book? So we did that over Zoom, launched it over Kickstarter, and did really well on the initial launch. So we raised thousands and thousands of pounds for these two charities, which was great. And then subsequently ended up with a number of publishers getting in touch and wanting to sign us up to publish the book. So we signed it up and it officially got published in December 23. And it's out now as an officially published book. So it's a really nice experience to go through that journey of doing something that was completely to help someone else, and then it's given a whole new life of a whole other potential, not, I wouldn't say career path, but definitely a journey that could end up somewhere very different than where we expected. So yeah, it's been a really good experience.
It's interesting all around, isn't it? Because as you say, for a great cause, but also another good cause was during those days of 2020 doing something creative and doing something different. And it was obviously a terrible time for everybody, really, but creative things did come out of that, and I guess it's quite nice to have been able to do something productive during that time.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. I mean, it was super. Everyone's got their stories of lockdown, right? Because nobody's got a positive. I had the best lockdown ever, unless you kind of live on your own in a big countryside place with a huge garden. It was tough. Young kids, it's incredibly tough. So we had 2 young kids. We were in a 2-bedroom flat with no garden, 2 young kids and a dog, trying to negotiate life and manage that with a daughter on the critically vulnerable list. So she didn't go outside for about 6 months of 2020. So to be able to actually come out of it with a project which was, we're really proud of the end result, and it actually delivered some good to help charities which help other people. We felt really proud off the back of that. Yeah, so that was a really nice thing to have done.
Oh, great. And so the background to this story is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you really on this, because it's something we've not talked about before. We try to kind of find all these different topics that are relevant for dads, for men, and your story is of having a daughter who was premature, and And if you don't mind, can we go back to those days and sort of talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. I've got no shame or fear about talking about our journey. I think only by talking about it, other people realise, oh my God, it wasn't just me who went through that, and other people have lived that. So, yeah, we've got two kids who are premature. First daughter was born in 2015, born 3 months early in a toilet at the hospital. So, as a first kid, it was quite quite an introduction to parenthood. She spent 97 days in NICU, which is neonatal intensive care, in Brighton. And then, yeah, we've got a son who was born in 2019. He was born 2 months early and spent, I think, about 3 weeks in NICU. I mean, I, we say only 3 weeks in NICU. Like if it's your first kid and you end up in neonatal intensive care, it's a really big deal. But after having gone through 3 months plus in NICU, 3 weeks was just a kind of a revisit to say hi to old friends of nurses that we've met way, right? So perspective becomes a big
Yeah.
deal at that point. But yeah, our daughter's journey was incredibly, incredibly tough. It's a horrendously difficult place to be at the best of times. It's real life and death on the front line, and especially as a dad, it's a really difficult place to be, more so than the normal, call it, I hate the word typical, but the normal birth experience you expect to have, because NICU is very much geared up for obviously look first and foremost looking after this baby, and the medical team there are absolutely incredible. So they focus all their efforts on taking care of your baby, and then the next thing they take care of is mum, who's just been through some kind of trauma with birth, whatever it might be. And then after that, there's a whole bunch of dads who exist in NICU who haven't got a clue what to do, where to go, who to speak to. And that really struck a chord with me at the time. I remember thinking, this isn't right. Like what do we do? Who do we talk to? There's no network, there's no support. And that's something I felt really strongly about. Okay, this has to change. So that's one of the reasons why I got involved with the EBA and now go back onto the unit to help support families who are going through not the same but comparable journeys that we went through, because I know how difficult it can be, and if I can kind of provide some level of support in that time, then great. That's a really good thing, I think, out the back of it.
Yeah, I can't imagine that, because when you in the first pregnancy, if anyone's who's been through the first pregnancy, you get those, like, you have those little fears. Everything's new, so everything's a bit like, oh God, is there something wrong? Is there something
Yeah.
happening? And generally, it's fine. Everything's fine, and generally, everyone has a different birth story, but you tend to get to around 9 months, and you tend
Yeah.
to have a labor that's a day, whatever, and then you have a baby. To have got to kind of 6 months, and then, I mean, was it obvious that something was happening? I mean, it must
No,
have been a
no,
real panic.
oh, it was the most bizarre, surreal, out of body experience. Like, my wife had the perfect pregnancy. Like, everything was great. Measurements, growth was brilliant. She was glowing, super healthy, eating all the right food, exercising, just literally the perfect pregnancy. And I remember super clearly, it was the day of the Manchester Derby, and it was on TV. And it was like, okay, I've been given a really nice bottle of Rioja as a present. I was like, you know what? I'm going to crack that open, have a glass, watch the Derby. This is going to be great. I think it was about 5 minutes in, my wife said to me, "Oh, I feel like something feels weird. I feel like there's something's leaking." Okay, well, let's deal with that. Called the hospital. They said, "Come in. We better have a check." Went in. They did a check of the liquid and said, "Yeah, this is, your waters are broken." So obviously for us, we were like, this doesn't sound good, right? This is not what it's supposed to be. They were very reassuring and said, look, it can be fine. We've seen situations it's taken weeks and weeks and weeks for labour to happen at this point. Okay, fine. Let's see what goes on here. My wife was hooked up to a uterine monitor to measure the uterus activity. Nothing showing on that. Everything absolutely fine. But I could really clearly see. In hindsight, I knew were contractions, but at the time I thought she just had cramps. So she would be, every few minutes she was just going. Mm. It's like, okay, this doesn't feel right. Something fundamentally feels wrong here. And then she went to the toilet, and then after about a minute in the toilet, I heard her scream the name of the midwife. Midwife came running in, and my wife's there holding a baby in the toilet, which is, yeah, it's a big moment. And then They pressed the crash button, crash team came running down, chaos, lots of nurses, lots of doctors, lots of consultants. And I mean, one of the weird things is like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but in those extreme moments, there's very minute details that really stand out for you. And for me, it was the moment when they actually turned on the incubator they brought down to put my daughter in. And when they turn it on, it obviously has to warm up because they need to keep these tiny little babies warm. When it warms up, it plays exactly the same notes as the opening bars to Mamma Mia from ABBA. So, and so every time I hear that song now, it's a Pavlovian response of taking me right back into that NICU. Totally weird, totally random, but yeah. So then yeah, baby gets put into the incubator and whisked away to NICU, and we didn't even get a chance to do the NCT class at this stage. So we
No,
knew
of course
nothing
not.
about. Yeah, exactly. We didn't know anything about prematurity or NICU. Or I don't even know they cover that in NCT. If they don't, they really should, because it happens to a lot of people. But our life became, yeah, months and months of sitting by an incubator and trying to understand what on earth is happening with the situation, and being delivered bad news after worse news after bad news. And firstly, as a couple, you just don't know what to do, right? You're just broken. The kind of the bond you have and the happy glow you think about your first child is gone. That's all out the window. But then, especially as a dad, what you envisage your journey to be as a dad with your kid, that's all of that expectation's gone as well. So you're working from a completely new playbook that you've had no pre-warning of at all. So it's a very weird experience. And I think the statistic is something like 71% of people that go through NICU end up with PTSD, because
Mm.
it's such an intense place to be. And I experienced massively lots and lots of issues after going through that. And it wasn't literally the day I left or a week left. I think it was about 4 years after that. I I think I know what the trigger was. It was it was after COVID, big house renovation, second kid, moved house, done all that. Literally got to a place where we felt we could kind of take the foot off the brake a little bit, and we'd been running on 100% for about 4 years, 5 years. And that moment where you kind of stop and let things absorb, boom, that hits really hard. So yeah, that was my moment where it's like, okay, I need help beyond me to kind of deal with this. So yeah, it was really tough, and I'm really grateful that I've got a strong, loving partner who kind of saw what was happening to me and said, "Look, Sam, you need to speak to someone, right? Because we've both gone through a lot of stuff, but you definitely need to talk to someone." So, yeah, it's a journey. It's a huge journey. It's not a pleasant journey. It's a journey, I think, that makes you a stronger and better person off the back of it. But yeah, it's yeah, definitely a journey, I think it's fair to say.
Well, I mean, I guess you just have to be there and take everything as it comes and roll with it, I guess. I mean, what size was your daughter at 3 months
Um,
early?
yeah, so she was. I mean, I don't know if you're kind of a metric or imperial kind of chap, Jim, but she was about 1,090 grams or
Right.
1,009. I forget where the zero went after that, but
Mm.
tiny. I mean, I've got pictures of her from like day 2 when she was born, and her entire arm would be across the palm of my hand, and just this tiny translucent, not very human looking that early, right? Because their features haven't formed, their eyes are closed. They look more primate than human. It's just very weird. And because they're in an incubator and they've got more tubes than you can ever imagine going into them from every point, so breathing tubes, feeding tubes going through their nose into their stomach, further down into their intestines, veins like cannulas going in everywhere. It's just such a bizarre experience to see your kid like that. And I remember my wife saying, particularly, like, she couldn't bond with our daughter for the first 3 weeks of birth because she couldn't hold her or touch her or do anything. So for a mum, that, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what that experience feels like. But from a dad's viewpoint, I kind of went into practicality mode a bit, just to do the things that I could do. It's like, right, okay, let's get all the all the stuff behind the scenes sorted. So let's take care of the dog and make sure work situations are covered and all of that. And then let's focus on the here and now and what we can do there. And luckily, we had the medical team that at the Trevor Mann Baby Unit in Brighton are incredible, and they gave us really good advice. And they said to us, "Look, stop staying here by the incubator. Go home. Your daughter's in the best possible hands. You need sleep. You need rest. You need to look after yourself to look after this little girl." So, yeah, we didn't listen to that, of course. Like we completely ignored that, but it was very good advice in hindsight, and yeah, advice I try and impart on families that are up there currently now.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's great for them to say that, but when you're in that situation, you know you've just had a baby, you don't want to be apart, even though you can't hold them. It's it must be really it's just incredibly tough. So did you stay at the hospital then? Is that what you did?
No, you weren't allowed to sleep at the hospital. My wife was staying there, I think, for the first week until she was well enough to come back. But I was, I mean, I was in a really fortunate position that my boss at the time was like, "Look, dude, take as long as you need. I'm not going to push you to come back. You deal with it. I'll keep paying you. Just do your thing. It's fine." Which was really really kind. I mean, it got to a point after about a month. So I have to come back. There's so much to do. I can't not be working. This is a massive medical emergency we're going through, but unfortunately the world keeps turning outside here and I have to think about that. So yeah, commuting to London, coming back from London at like 7:30 at night, straight up to the hospital, staying there until about midnight, and then repeating that, it's a brutal experience. It's really really tough, but I mean, I'm someone who tries to find the positives in moments like that. And one of the things I remember doing a lot of in the NICU was reading to my daughter because, well, primarily there was so little else I could do for her because she was so small. Sometimes we could hold her for about 30, 45 minutes a day with nurse support. But at night, there's nothing we could do. So I figured, okay, I'm just going to read to her. So I got every single edition of the Roald Dahl books, stacked them on top of an incubator, and just sat there reading and reading and reading as a way of bonding with her. And I mean, there's no medical uh, evidence for this, but she is a ferocious reader now and loves books. So it's like, okay, maybe some of that trickled through. I don't know, but yeah, I think it was a nice thing to do at that point.
Mm. And helpful for you, helpful for her, right? Helpful. It's all
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, it made me feel like I was doing something positive in that time.
Mhm. So that seems kind of brutal. You were commuting from sort of the Brighton area up to London and then in the hospital. I mean, how much sleep were you getting over that time?
I mean, if I got 5 hours a night, I was doing well. I think, yeah,
Mhm.
it was an unsustainable model of living. It was not possible. But we weren't living in a standard model at that point, right? We were living in an extreme situation. So we did whatever we thought at the time was the right thing to deal with it. And yeah, we knew there would be consequences down the line for what we were doing. But at that point, we had to focus on the critical issues, which was caring for our daughter and working out a plan for the future and what we're going to do and how we're going to cope with additional needs and think of all of those things. And yeah, it was a very very complicated time, but it feels like we're at a point now we've kind of gone through the worst of it and we now can start to look a bit more towards a brighter future, which is, to be honest, it feels like quite an unusual place to be in because we haven't been there
Mm.
before. So we're always thinking, okay, what's around the corner? What's the next bad thing that's going to happen? But I think we need to kind of just, yeah, take our foot off the gas on that and be like, you know what? No, this is okay. We can look towards it in a better light right now.
I guess that's the nature of that situation, as you said earlier. You were there and dealing with bad news and other news, and I guess it's a situation while your child's in that sort of place that it's an ongoing situation. There's always something happening and something developing, and I guess you get used to almost, do you, having to just make a decision and go with something and.
Yeah, your kind of baseline for what on earth is happening kind of, yeah, moves massively. So, I mean, we had do not resuscitate orders in place, and so one of the complications her daughter had, she had severe bleeding on the brain from being born so early. And I remember the consultant delivering us the news after the scan on day 6. So they take a scan on day 2 or possibly day 3 after the child is born, and to get an indicative picture of what's happening. And then day 6 or day 7, I think it is, they take another scan, which gives a much clearer picture. So that second scan, when they delivered the news to us, the consultant, he was in tears. And I remember thinking, wow, firstly, this is not good if you're in tears. But secondly, that's a really nice human display I'm seeing from you, because, medical staff have to they have to protect themselves. And that's why they are very, emotionally guarded sometimes. But I really respected that display of humanity from him. And yeah, so it's brutal. It's very, very difficult. But then, like I said, that your baseline for normal moves massively. And for us, baseline was, okay, is she going to survive the day? That was it. And seeing her oxygen levels drop to a point where her skin turns grey or blue became just a standard part of our day to day. And then sort of moving that forward a year or two, when you have nursery and school involved, like hearing other parents sort of get really worried about their kid has got a little cold or their nose is running. It's hard to bite your tongue sometimes, because your baseline is so different. But yeah, you have to be a little bit mindful of that fact that they don't know what you've been through, right?
But an interesting point for the rest of us. Yeah, an interesting point that when we are complaining and when we are whinging, yeah, okay, and it does, as you say, everyone's got the different baseline, haven't they? And for you,
Yeah.
it is bad, but there are some people who've had their child in that situation for 3 months, and yeah, that's very different. So, I imagine there came a stage then where your thought wasn't, is my child going to survive the day? That did that happen as time went on? It became more of a kind of, did you notice that when there was kind of progress towards you being able to take her home?
Yeah, so in the neonatal intensive care unit, there's kind of 3 what they call nurseries, but they're very different from the nurseries that you or I would envisage them to be. So nursery 1 is the very, very critical, intense cases. So when we were there, the ratio was, I think it was 2 nurses per incubator, and at least 1 doctor for every 3 babies. So these were really critical cases. So nursery 1, very, very intense, scary place. Nursery 2, a little bit more relaxed, where the parents can start to be a bit more involved in the care for their child. So changing a nappy. So dad first moment, right? You change a nappy as a dad, it's a big deal. Changing a nappy for a child within an incubator, where you've got about 15 different wires and probes to move, and it's another level of that. But then you get more involved in nursery 2, and then nursery 3 is where they prepare you a lot more for coming home. So yeah, it's a very different experience going through that, to try and get yourself ready to come home. And what you perceive as normal is so different to what everyone else perceives as normal. But your point earlier is really interesting about how no one knows what you've gone through, so you can't kind of comment or judge on anyone else's journey. And that's something that our journey's really taught us massively, right? Because we've seen our daughters in a mainstream school, and we've seen kids in that school who've been called the naughty kid. And for us, it's like, whoa, you can't do that. You don't know what journey that kid's been on. And we've spoken to the parents, and it turns out that kid's been adopted from an abusive household. And it's like, don't call this kid the naughty kid, right? They've pulled him out of a situation which has obviously been more horrendous you could ever imagine. So yeah, it's definitely a perspective view as well. Once you've gone through that, you're very much more mindful about everyone else's journey as well.
Yeah, it is one of those things, and it is nature, isn't it, to make a snap judgment. We just do
Yeah.
it. We all do it. We all do it. But then it's just taking that step back and going, actually, we don't know what's going on here. So let's just be more open and be more kind of willing to give the benefit of the doubt, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so I imagine that the day when you were able to take her home is pretty much etched in your memory forever. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very well. Yeah, that kind of, it coincides with an earlier day, was when the first day where we came home from the hospital when she was born, and we came back to the house without our daughter. Me and my wife just sat there and cried for, I can't remember how long, but for a really long time. But then the day we took her home was such a mix of happiness, fear, joy, worry. It's just vortex of feelings, right? Because spending best part of 3.5 months in neonatal care, you're surrounded by some of the most amazing medical staff in the world. You are in this incredibly protected bubble. And the moment you take her home, that bubble's gone. It's on you as a parent. And I'm sure every single parent has this feeling when they come home from the hospital. They're like, shit, this is my kid now. I have to deal with this. And what if something goes wrong? And I fully get that. And we had exactly that, but just kind of times 10 because of all the complications that existed off the back of it. So yeah, it was really, really scary. But we found, I think actually we didn't sleep for the first 2 nights, I remember, because we were just watching her in case she stopped breathing. And then we realized, you know what, we will probably sense it or hear it or feel it if something changes. So little by little, you kind of let go a bit, which I guess is the entire journey with having kids, right? You're just little by little letting go of them so they can be independent human beings. So yeah, we got to a point where we could feel a bit more relaxed about it. But yeah, it wasn't quick, Jim, not in any way.
No, I can imagine. And then when the pregnancy with your son, what were your thoughts? I mean, because obviously mostly the idea is you find out about pregnancy, there's joy. Sure, I'm imagining there was some trepidation, was there?
Oh, I mean, it took us a while to decide to try for a second one because of what we'd been through the first, but we thought, you know what, sibling would be great. We like kids, let's do it. And that pregnancy was more complicated. There was lots of scares and checks throughout, and his birth was super dramatic and high risk and all of that as well. And my wife and I have talked about it, and we think both our kids have been like vying with each other for the most intense delivery story into the world. So yeah, our daughter born in the toilet at 3 months. Our son was emergency C-section because he was breech, and because he was coming out early breech, he was pushing the umbilical cord out with his feet, which meant it would have ruptured, which meant he would have died. So apparently the medical staff was saying, yeah, this is quite a serious situation in terms of birth. So it's like, okay, cool, another one. We're on board. Great, let's do this. But we did get to go back up to NICU and see all the nurses again, and it was kind of fun because there was none of the super high risk situations we had with our daughter. So it was a lot more relaxed the second time around, which was, even though we were still in NICU and that's a horrendous place to be, but yeah, we were able to kind of enjoy it slightly more, which sounds morbid, but it was kind of pleasant in its own unique way.
Well, familiar, I guess, isn't it? And I guess,
yeah, familiar more than pleasant is fair, I think. Yeah.
and I guess, as you say, when the bar's been set in a certain place, it's different for everyone, isn't it? Of
Yeah.
course. So can you tell us a bit about how the Early Birth Association helped you out then?
Yeah, so they're an organisation that's been around for a really long time. I want to say about 25 years. I may get that number completely wrong. So EBA, apologies if that's wrong. Please correct me. But it's made up of parents who have all had kids with prematurities, and they're volunteers who go into the Trevor Mann unit, and they help by doing loads of things behind the scenes that you don't think about, but make a massive difference when you're in there. So all the teas and coffees and drinks and snacks you get when you're in there, that's all sorted out and funded by the EBA. So all the things that try and make your life a little bit better in that difficult situation, it could be little blankets for babies, gifts on Mother's Day, things like that. They take care of all of that. So yeah, they're super supportive, an organization that's there to really help any parent who finds himself on the NICU, and they're just a bunch of good eggs. So yeah, you guys should all support them massively. I heartily endorse this message.
Well, I mean, it's amazing, and yeah, it's such a necessary thing, and I imagine it makes what is a horrific situation for many people slightly more bearable. And if anyone can do that, then that's a glorious thing to be able to do, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. They're really good people doing super work to help people in really difficult situations. So yeah, kudos to the EBA on that. Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been fascinating, and it's really interesting to get your story. And as you say, there'll be people who have been through the situations, and and people don't talk about it, and hopefully we can inspire some conversations at our Dad's Only events, and people that have seen a bit of their story in yours and know that they're not alone. So thank you very much for coming on.
My pleasure, Jim. Yeah, thanks for having me. And I would say to any dad who's been through that, talk about it. Yeah, reach out, have a chat with someone. Super important to do that.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Sam Wilson there on the Dadless Soul sessions for March. This is back first Thursday of April. I don't know who the main guest is going to be yet. I like to fly by the seat of my pants and not find out just yet. But Alex will hopefully be back as well. You'll have Dan Flanagan on, and yeah. And in the meantime, find out what we are up to at dadlesssoul.com. You can find all our events there, dadlesssoul.com/shop, and you can get tickets for our Dad's Only Playdates. This Saturday, we're in Brighton. Dad's Only meetups on Thursday nights. This Saturday, we're in Brighton with the Dads and Kids Playdate. It's a free play session at Plus X, so get yourself down there. And until next month, I will see